And we're live. Let's just wait for... Hello, Johnny. We'll wait for some more people to join. Gemma, you're already here. This is brilliant. So just to tee things up before we introduce ourselves, I'm Amelie. I'm from the digital team here at RÄBURN. Thanks for joining. I'm very well, thank you. Tonight we're at the RÄBURN Lab, so live from RÄBURN HQ. And before we get into the conversation tonight, just going to give you a little bit of a look around at the studio here. We've got Joe, who can give us a little bit of a wave. Yeah, no, really excited for tonight. So this is my debut on RÄBURN Connects. I'm Amelie. I'm from the digital team here at RÄBURN, and really importantly, I'm going to start off by saying that the RÄBURN Lab is excitingly back open now. So as of last week, we are back to welcoming visitors. So please give us a visit if you can come in. We are open currently between Fridays and Sundays, 12 to 6 p.m. The amazing retail team will welcome you. You can see how our atelier is working. So behind us, that's where all our remade collections are made and all the action happens. Awesome to see all you guys coming and joining the conversation. Hello, hello. Thanks, Randolph. So tonight, I'm going to sit down over here. Tonight is our RÄBURN Connects episode 11. And for those of you who are new to RÄBURN Connects, this is our event series all about combining good ideas, great people and grand visions, and really starting a conversation around interesting topics. And importantly, it's about involving you guys as well, so the audience. If you have any comments or questions, please keep them going. This is all about the triangle involving all of us sharing ideas, and hopefully this should be a really interesting and inspiring conversation tonight. So without further ado, I'll get Gemma to join in, who is our brilliant guest tonight. Let's see for Gemma. Oh, Gemma, it says that you're unable to join if you request again. And in the meantime, I'll say as well. Oh, there she is.
Hello.
Hi,
Happy
Gemma.
Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day. This is perfect timing. I was just going to say tonight is obviously very special because it's Earth Day. It's also our first year anniversary of RÄSTART, which is what this conversation is about. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. And the studio looks amazing.
Thanks. We'll have to have you come visit and actually do this physically sometime.
Yeah.
So hello also to the Stories Behind Things community. This is really brilliant to have our two communities join. And just as a recap for anybody who's new here, so I'm Amelie. I'm from the digital team here at RÄBURN, and RÄBURN, we are in our HQ, basically our multidisciplinary studio here in Hackney in London. And tonight, we're going to have hopefully a really great conversation around Earth Day and around, importantly, the question about what kind of learnings have we got and gained from the pandemic in the last year, really. Obviously, Earth Day is all about kind of really thinking about kind of the environmental side of things, like what impacts we are having on the planet as individuals, as businesses, and what we can do to really, improve the situation here as individuals. And at RÄBURN, that's what RÄSTART is about. It was our bold manifesto to really be the change. And that came about this time last year, obviously with the pandemic, that we thought, let's just take stock of this moment and really put into writing tangible actions for a better future. So Gemma, without further ado, amazing to have you on. Please do introduce yourself, and can you tell me a little bit more about what Stories Behind Things is about?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Gemma, co-founder and CEO of Stories Behind Things. Really what we do at Stories Behind Things is explore sustainability. So we have our online platform on Instagram, which is where all of our community are. And there we put out educational content, really just to explore what does sustainability mean, different areas. It's such a huge topic. And we found that with such a huge topic, with an increasing trend comes so much complexity. So we're here to explore it, to navigate our way through it. And then last month we launched an online sustainable store. So we worked with Eco Aging Good on You to represent a massive array of amazing brands who are sort of prioritizing people and the planet. So we're here to engage, to educate, but most importantly to lead with positivity and lead with solutions.
Amazing. Yeah, and I've been following you for a long time, Gemma, and you know, I have so much admiration for the work that you do.
Thank you.
You definitely kind of lead the change and inspire people like me to you know, be better people and kind of put planet first. So that's why I'm really looking forward to talking to you tonight. And also congratulations on your new launch of your store.
Thank you.
So maybe we just, you know, kick off by saying, like, how has the pandemic been for you personally?
It's been really interesting. I think for a lot of people, it's been this moment of silence to kind of really reflect on what you're doing, what your job is, what your purpose is. And especially in the industry that I am in every day, sustainability and fashion, it's been such a moment for consumers to reflect, but also for brands to sit back and think, what could we be doing better? You know, what are our values? And I think so many brands are changing what their values are, which has been really exciting to see. But for me personally, it was an exciting time for Stories Behind Things. We've, you know, come back to basics and sort of had the time to really plan and really sort of put some exciting things in place. So
and here we are with a seasonal store, so
yeah.
Amazing. You know, as you said, Stories Behind Things is all about inspiring sort of conscious consumption and lifestyle choices. And you obviously touched on the fact that we all slowed down in this last year, and most of us have done. We've really taken kind of stock of the situation and reflected on a lot of things. Have you noticed anything change in the community and the uptake of Stories Behind Things?
I think what we've seen is more questions being asked. I think when you have more time at home and not all the distractions of the high street stores when you're walking to work every day and sort of being bombarded with billboards telling you to buy things that you don't need, it's been an interesting switch from offline to online in a way. People are spending so much more time online researching, and I think with that has come an influx of questions. You know, brands that you'd usually buy from, sort of doing that little more digging deeper into what their story is. I think storytelling and narrative we've seen play such a huge role in this year. I think the consumer is becoming more educated, more interested, but more demanding as well to really get those questions from brands.
Definitely. And just speaking from here at RÄBURN, that's really what we've noticed as well. More and more people asking the right questions, being interested in kind of the transparency in the background of our products and our making. So that it has been a real positive. And I think what you said as well about the storytelling side, what's so important about product and brands is that story and that, the story behind that product kind of extends that durability and that value of that item. And I think that's what you champion so well on Stories Behind Things, that it's brands that have a story to tell. And therefore, if you're going to buy a product, that's hopefully a product that you're really going to treasure and love for a long time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think sustainability as a buzzword has been around for a little while now, long enough for everyone to be familiar with it, everyone to have heard it sort of again and again. But what we found is so many really basic questions like, what does it even mean? You know, if a brand is sustainable, quote unquote sustainable, what does that even mean? It's been sort of put out into the world as this tick box. It's something either is or it isn't. And I think what we found really interesting with the questions that we've been asked sort of over the last year is sort of people trying to unpack that and understanding that it's really not as simple as something is or it isn't sustainable.
It is so complicated, isn't it? And just for anybody who's watching this and doesn't know RÄBURN that well, we don't call ourselves a sustainable brand. We approach things much more with an angle of responsibility. So we like to talk about our responsibility to do the right thing. We don't claim to be perfect or to be sustainable for that matter. And actually that's what RÄSTART is about ultimately. It's about recognizing our areas for improvement and the changes that we still have to make, whilst also being transparent about the steps that we have achieved. So just as an example, one of the big things for us over the last year is trying to be B Corp certified. Now we aren't quite there yet, but it's something that hopefully over the next months we can achieve, and that will be a really rewarding thing to have done. So sustainability in general is obviously super complex, but just going back again about kind of lockdown and people's habits and changes, there's something that you said last time we spoke, Gemma, and it really stuck, and that's the 21-90 rule. So it takes 21 days to form a habit, 90 days to form a permanent lifestyle change. Now, lockdown has obviously been that perfect opportunity for us all to slow down, to get into new routines, perhaps take obviously work at home, or take new routines that we hadn't pre-pandemic. So actually it's been the perfect time to cement new habits and hopefully lasting change in our personal lives.
Definitely. And to, clear out your wardrobe, embroider things that you don't love anymore, kind of inject new life into pieces that you have. And I think there's a sort of double-edged sword to this. It's the perfect scenario to reclaim the clothes that you already have, and to also feel comfortable in the fact that you don't need so much new stuff. And then the flip side is that we've all been online for the last year. So, everybody has been on Instagram or on social media. And of course, that's where all the brands have been going to, fast fashion brands, etc. So I think it's the perfect scenario to grow with your sustainable habits. But equally, I think it's also quite dangerous, especially with consumption.
And that's the risk now that you've mentioned with fast fashion and with consumption. I'm not sure if you've seen the pictures of the lines and the queues outside the likes of Primark and even luxury stores now that shops have reopened. Awful term, but revenge buying. What's your take on that?
I think lockdown for many people has triggered sort of interesting things about their relationship to consumption in general. We've had a lot of questions about mental health playing such a role in people's shopping habits. So feeling like you're almost locked away and then suddenly getting that freedom to run back into the shops. People feel our community certainly have been feeling pressure to go out and shop, pressure to have that sense of newness. I mean, lots of people have been almost locked away with just themselves or with their family, so suddenly feeling the pressure to not be seen in an outfit at the same time, multiple time and time again, wanting that sense of newness. So I think the revenge buying has been really interesting to see roll out in the news, like you said, with all of that imagery. It's something that people really have to kind of make a mental note to try not to jump on board with that.
And hopefully it isn't lasting, and that really is just a quick fix retail therapy. There was something you posted on Stories Behind Things not too long ago, and that was something really poignant. We are all recovering hypocrites. Now I think that is really relevant actually, because of all the challenges that we've personally felt through the pandemic, and also has that element of optimism that you are so great at on your platform. Can you unpack really what you meant by that statement?
Yeah, definitely. It's something that I feel really, really passionate about. And it's something that we often time and time again relay to our community, that nobody is perfect, firstly. I have shopped at fast fashion shops, before I even knew it was a problem. I used to go into them all the time. Like, nobody is perfect. But just because you have not been perfect for your entire life or haven't jumped on a plane before, that you can still demand a more sustainable future, and you can still improve. Our messaging is progress over perfection. We want people to feel empowered, not shamed. So something that we really try to push is to always lead with solutions, and to always lead with just a sense of positivity. I think that's come from me personally feeling motivated by feeling empowered, rather than the scary, massive statistics that leave us often feeling that we can do nothing, or that feeling of, I'm just one person, I can't make change. How am I going to help the climate crisis? I'm just one person. And we really need to flip that around, because individually we all need to feel empowered together, because that's how we can create real change. Even if it's demanding change from big brands, corporates, or even governments, all of those changes initially started with a group of individuals. So that's really our standpoint on that. It's so important, I think.
I'm totally with you on that one. It's the power of the collective, really. And better all of us do something imperfectly than just a few people doing it perfectly, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, actually, it has started quite optimistically already, quite naturally in this.
Yeah.
So maybe we start off by actually talking about some of the good takeaways that that you and I kind of feel from the pandemic, but importantly also viewers. This is also about involving you guys. So please comment with your inputs on this and your thoughts. So Jemma, over to you. What do you think are some of the positives that we can take away from the pandemic?
I think in general, slowing down, becoming more localized, I think is a really big one. Everybody has had to become more localized, and it's made me certainly question, going to a local farmer's market rather than a big chain supermarket. Those small changes that allow you to sort of slow down and to really think about those purchases that you're making, or the decisions that then roll out and sort of impact things on a wider scale. I think the chance to reflect and really consider what your relationship is with consumption, even if you don't realize it. I think everybody has done that. Thinking, do I miss going into H&M and buying a top every Friday? If that's something that you would have done and then you're actually not able to do that, it would be interesting to sort of dig a bit deeper and think, why was I doing that? Did I need that top every Friday? Those small things.
No, it's so true. And I think with the localization, a lot of us started thinking about, oh, I'm spending my money with this business, so I'm supporting these people. Actually people behind the brand at the end of the day. So it's really voting with your wallet and supporting that infrastructure around you, that community element. So something that really felt at RÄBURN as well was that despite us all being more physically separated, obviously, or disconnected, we actually felt more connected than ever before, because suddenly you're having conversations online. Everybody is got this time on their hands to have meaningful conversations, and going back to what you said earlier, ask important questions and reflect. And that reminds me of a really incredible statistic that I wanted to mention, and that's a Google Trends report that actually came out this time last year. So it was over a year ago. They said that the search results for how to live a sustainable lifestyle went up by 4,500%
Wow.
last year. So in just 90 days up to April. So that's incredible. To your point earlier, loads of people asking the right questions and people reflecting.
Yeah, absolutely. I've just seen someone writing in the comments, understanding how much we unnecessarily hoard things. I couldn't agree more. And I think things like that will be relevant to so many people that are listening.
Yeah, and FOMO has improved, I think.
Yeah.
So many of us being caught up in living busy lives, and actually, more important, living meaningful lives. Brilliant. Yeah, thanks you all for coming in with the comments. Another really big one for me is the crafting element. I think a lot of us have taken time to learn new skills and upskill and get creative. And again, that was something that Google Trends picked up on, actually, just the searches in certain crafts and tutorials. Just to mention something else, obviously, that many of our watchers will know about is our Depop collaboration, and the open source patterns that we released the lockdown has been such a rewarding thing to watch from inside the brand, just seeing how people are getting busy creating and learning new things. And then off the back of that boom in the resale market and secondhand market, obviously Depop is a really big platform for that. Hopefully, again, these are things that will last and stay, as people have touched on this over lockdown. Crafting is the future of design.
Yes.
We fall in love with design again. Exactly, Johnny. I think, again, something that we preach here is that when you get an appreciation for how things are made, so whether that is seeing how a garment is made or having some sort of involvement yourself in making that piece of clothing, your appreciation and respect for that craft just really increases. And I think that's such a wonderful thing that Fashion Revolution also championed. And obviously it's Fashion Revolution week this week. So hello to any Fashion Revolution watchers tonight. Yes, Johnny. Brilliant. So I think, yeah, that is some of the really good takeaways, right, for fashion over lockdown. And also what I want to say is kind of the limitations that people have felt through a lockdown actually gives rise to better creativity. Hopefully some better solutions are going to come out of this as people have had that time to reflect, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So let's flip the coin. Let's go to the other side. Looking more critically, what we've seen businesses come out with these capsule collections, greenwashing galore, sort of adoption of more responsible fibers, which obviously is brilliant. But we all know that isn't really enough to change the dial. What do you think actually really needs to happen with businesses in the fashion industry?
Yeah, I think the main thing is transparency, and it's such an issue. Everyone's playing with a different rule book. You know, the big players in the fashion industry all have different rules. You know, so many treat humans and their garment workers as like an optional add-on. And obviously we've seen the various breakdowns throughout COVID to push this into the news and to the mainstream, which is really necessary to raise the awareness. But obviously it's awful. And I think the things that we need to see are real transparency. Transparency of the carbon emissions that go into making of the clothing, real transparency of how much garments brands are paying their garment workers. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's something that we can realistically expect to see. And I think it's not fair, but the onus tends to come onto the consumer to put pressure on brands. And then we often see that there is then a turnaround, sort of an act of rebellion, I guess, of loads and loads of consumers asking the same question, and then we'll get a statement from a brand, you know, explaining what's happened, or you know, feedback from what the issue that was raised. So it's an unfair way round, but it just shows that voices really do matter. You know, if 10,000 people ask or complain about a brand and say that they don't pay their workers, or why do they use this material versus a different one, they'll sit in their Monday morning meeting and say, oh wow, 10,000 people have asked us this. So
that's right.
It's a silly example, but all of these individual voices really can make a difference. And obviously we saw this with Boohoo earlier this year with the Leicester incident. And bringing that mass awareness, it's another benefit of social media, is that these pieces of information can really sort of run like wildfire, which definitely raises awareness.
And I think that's actually the perfect answer for one of the comments we had just now coming in. How can we increase awareness and power the movement? Power in voices and power and involvement. I mean, we can all be sofa activists. It's better than nothing, right? Share that, spread it and speak amongst your friends and your family and your own echo chambers. I think that's something that I'm always quite interested in. I obviously surround myself with people like platforms like yourself, and people who are already championing this message and share those values. It's about breaking beyond that and getting out there. And I think the more people that are talking about this and asking the right questions and challenging themselves, the more we will move towards that positive future.
Definitely. And I think also it's one thing that we try to sort of share quite a lot is redefining what activist actually means. It's been such a buzzword this year, especially during 2020. And I think, you know, being an activist, in my opinion, means standing up for what you believe in. That can be talking to a friend, that can be challenging a family member to a conversation, a different sort of perspective that maybe they didn't have before, all the way through to, you know, shouting on your Instagram stories and calling out, tagging brands. If that's your style, amazing. But you can also do really, really positive work in sort of whatever way that feels natural to you, you know, emailing a brand and asking them 3 questions, or sending them a DM as well. So like there's lots of different ways that you can be a part of the movement, which I think can only be a positive thing.
It's so interesting, that thought about activism, because I think a lot of us probably don't consider ourselves activists. Thinking about people protesting,
exactly, holding
a banner, and obviously with what we've seen with Extinction Rebellion, I think there's a lot of sort of challenges there with people. Do they want to be associated with people being arrested and causing disruption? But no, importantly, what you said, you don't have to be an activist on the front lines. We're all using our voices, and that's plenty.
Couldn't agree more.
So yeah, you touched on something just then, and it was really terrible news within the last year, and that is the case of the garment workers in Leicester. It's happening in the UK, exploitation within our supply chains, and something that really desperately needs to be addressed, and that's why we need that transparency. Do you remember when that came forward, and what was your reaction to that?
Yeah, I think it's clearly shocking for everybody that saw that, you know, in the newspapers. I think my main takeaway from that is how interesting it was that people generally don't think that that happens in our country, and sort of visualize that it only happens in areas like Bangladesh or these kinds of places. It happens in LA, it happens in London, it happens in Leicester. And I think it was an absolute tragedy, but what it did do was bring the attention to allow the mainstream to understand that this is a problem that is happening on our doorstep. With many more brands than we know about. So to encourage people to ask those questions to any brand that they love, not just a fast fashion brand, you know, to be curious and to ask those questions is so key. But yeah, I remember the moment actually, and it was really shocking, horrible.
I think that's it. We sort of outsource our feelings and our problems. Maybe we kind of associate it with being somewhere so far that we don't have an emotional reaction to it so much. But when it's happening just a few miles away, even in your own country, then my God, yeah, that was a wake up call, I think, and hopefully for many of us to really question what's going on behind closed doors, right?
Yeah, definitely. But I think also I saw in the news the other day that fast fashion is still booming, sales is still booming. So, you know, it obviously creates panic, and people don't buy from those stores for a certain period of time. And then unfortunately, it's looked like that everything's picked back up again in terms of sales. I actually read something on Business of Fashion the other day about Boohoo specifically, saying that they had just taken on a new warehouse to accelerate their growth to a certain level because the demand was so high over lockdown. So, you know, these problems are still so rife, which is
which brings me on to the Environmental Audit Committee's report. So I think quite a lot of us probably will know about this. So in 2019, a body of various researchers, thought leaders, and brands even came together to compile this body of work called the Fixing Fashion Report in 2019, and they put that forward to the government with kind of findings about the state of fashion in the UK and some solid recommendations for how hopefully we can address and improve the situation across not only socially but environmentally for the industry. And at the time, frustratingly, the government rejected all of those recommendations.
All of them. It's outrageous.
Exactly, which was just God, it gets me angry, right? But some positive news on that is, and I'm not sure if you knew about that, in October the government said that they'd be revisiting that report and looking at that again, and hopefully this time round, in light of them revisiting that, it's actually a sign that they are willing to implement some of that work. And I think that compliance and regulation is really important. We need that third player. It's not only consumer facing or consumer side. We need laws in place and policies in place to guide businesses in the right direction.
Absolutely. And it will also help sort of phase out greenwashing for the consumer, which will allow them to actually make informed decisions knowing that they have all the information present. You know, if we have regulation, it takes some of the work out for the poor consumer that's trying to make the right decision, you know, seeing a brand that has a sustainable collection or that they genuinely think is doing something good, you know, investing in that brand, and then a week later finding out that they've exploited their workers. It's such a confusing space for the consumer to be in. Even you know, a conscious consumer who's doing research and really spending time, you can see how very quickly they feel disempowered and then just disengage from the whole thing. So I absolutely think regulation would really help move the conversation along.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think that would also kind of tick off some of the questions that come in here, made in the UK. I mean, we know that those kinds of call outs and labels of made in are actually quite complex and often not true. They're not reflective of the entire supply chain and where that garment actually has had contact with loads of different countries. Yeah, it's really a place that needs a lot more addressing, be that through like a traffic light system. If we talk about food, that has some sort of, we see it in the food industry, but some kind of clarity on the labels, on consumer facing, that would help people guide the right way. Because at the end of the day, it's not only the customer's responsibility and the individual's responsibility to know how to make that right choice. We really need to work together to address this, right?
People are writing really nice things about RÄBURN in the comments.
Oh, amazing.
Do such a great job at creating momentum and addressing long-term challenges within the industry.
Amazing. This is brilliant. Thank you so much, everyone commenting in. No, I'm really enjoying this. Gemma, you have so many good inputs, and I think I don't know if you've heard of this guy. He is a economist called Jason Hickles. He wrote a book about degrowth, and it's there's a statement or a fact that he came up with. He worked on, and that is the fact that if we tripled garment workers' wages by we tripled them, then the price change for individuals or customer end would be 5 to 10%, which doesn't actually seem that great, but that can have a massive influence on fast fashion and kind of render that business model impossible. So
yeah,
and going back to the fact that if we have greater transparency in the supply chain, we put policies and government regulation in place and actually think about improving their lives down the line, we can actually address hopefully a lot of the social aspects and complexity.
Yeah, definitely. And I think also lots of small brands that we're seeing that are kind of disrupting the market and doing really interesting things and being sort of radically transparent, which is really great to see. So many of them are using the planet or people and planet as a key stakeholder rather than just profit and sales and growth. So I think to your point on degrowth, it's also about changing the core values of how you actually measure success, and measuring success with sales, yes, with growth, you know, healthy growth, and your impact on the planet, which will in turn, you know, push down the growth because it will be off keel if you're just focusing on profit. So I think that's something that smaller brands and sort of brands like RÄBURN, but also the, you know, new brands maybe during lockdown that have come out of the woodwork, have this new model. And it's really exciting to see that a business can thrive when it's prioritizing the people and planet. It's not just the global brands that are doing well. Yeah. And we've seen that this year, which I think is really exciting.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that massively. And I think, you know, a lot of us are talking about circularity, and obviously that's a massive, you know, that's the aim ultimately for RÄBURN here, that we need to move towards a circular model really to address a lot of the impacts, cut out waste, and you know, improve the future for the industry. But it is a massive challenge, and at the end of the day, with the kind of capitalist model that we live in, which is based on growth, the two aren't compatible. You can't be in a circular economy whilst having a growth model. So again, government intervention here is massive, and I think it goes back to the fact that as an individual you can feel really overwhelmed and think, you know, what can I do? This isn't on me. But positively, again, putting a positive in there, New Zealand is one of the countries that actually has adopted a new measure around welfare rather than using GDP as a measure for welfare. And
wow.
Yeah, so female-led country. And I think that's amazing when we see leaders or people in position of leadership taking a massive disruptive step like that and saying, hey, at the end of the day, GDP and growth doesn't work for us. We should be looking at, how people feel.
That's so interesting.
Right. And kind of the planet's boundaries. And once we respect people and planet, then it allows everybody to thrive.
I love that. I need to read into that. I didn't know.
Yeah, it's not only New Zealand. There's a couple of others, and I can't remember them now. But it's amazing, and I think that's what I find really interesting about the concept of degrowth. Yeah, kind of taking the emphasis away from capital gain. Let's see what more questions are coming in, because
loads have come in.
I would love to shop based on carbon footprints. How far do you think we're away from that? Be quite interesting to hear your take on that, Gemma, because you obviously work with quite a few brands now. Do you do consulting for them? Do you give them advice and stuff?
Yes, I consult for brands to help them with their storytelling and to help them get their message across to the consumer in a way that debunks sort of the complexity of what they're talking about. And I think the carbon footprint conversation is so interesting. And this week, actually, Allbirds announced that they sort of have made their carbon footprint calculator sort of accessible to all brands, as a big call to ask the big brands, how amazing would it be if, when you're shopping for clothes, just as you see calories on the food label, that it would have the carbon that it took to create that piece. And I think those kind of innovations will really help the consumer make those informed decisions. And it's more of an education piece as well. If you walked into, let's say, a fast fashion store, or equally a store that you thought was really sustainable, and you saw a really high, number for the carbon footprint, it would make you think and, then go and ask those questions. So I think I agree with that comment. It would be amazing to be able to shop via carbon footprint. But of course, like any of these sort of innovations, to allow them to actually be successful, everybody has to do it. And unfortunately, I don't think many of the big brands would do that. Yeah. But we can hope.
We can hope. And again, it just takes a few of us to kind of push that agenda forward, and hopefully more people will adopt it and people take notice of it. And I think bigger brands are taking notice of the small sharks there that are pushing that forward. I also saw a comment that from Natasha, Bhutan has gross national happiness. This is it.
Love.
But how amazing. Power to the consumer. Yeah, exactly. So I think we've touched on a lot of things here, and we've scratched a lot at the surface of different things, and sustainability is such a complex topic at the end of the day. One of the last things that I wanted to really talk about, and I think I suppose it's what we've already kind of unpackaged here, it's the overwhelm. It's how do we as individuals not kind of give up and say, hey, this is too much for us to do. And there's so many different layers to unpack: the social side, the environmental side. I mean, the carbon footprint thing is great, but it's just the carbon footprint at the end.
Yeah.
What do you say to kind of stay on track yourself?
I say you don't have to be perfect. I say find the area of sustainability that you're interested in. Is it sort of waste? Is it water? Is it materials? Is it the social justice side? Pick an area to start off with and do your research, and then from there your knowledge will grow and it will become something that you can dip in and out of, sort of having that baseline of knowledge. I think asking brands questions is such a key part of the conversation. If a brand doesn't reply to you, the chances are it's because they don't want to answer the question. All brands have teams and teams of people now on their social media, answering their DMs, answering emails. So use your voice. It does matter. And yeah, you actually do. Someone said power to the consumer. Sounds cheesy, but it's so true. Ask the questions, and explore what brands are really doing to push the conversation forward, because we're past the kind of buzzword of sustainability now. We want to get into the nitty-gritty. What are you actually doing? What are your goals, firstly? But then actually the secondary question that should follow very quickly is, okay, how are you going to get there? You
Yeah.
know, we've seen these global brands with these very glossy, impressive goals. But we actually want to see the roadmaps now. How are you going to move the needle forward? And also, does that brand deserve your money, your payment,
Yeah.
your investment into their journey? So I think that would be another one.
I love that. Everything you just said. And just echoing that from the RÆBURN side again, I mean, I am obviously being in the digital team, I receive that feedback firsthand from customers, and not even customers, but from our community, and interacting and having that feedback. I mean, I'd be lying if I said it was always positive, because it's not. But
it must be really helpful to get questions sort of, oh, have you thought of this? Or I wonder why you chose this decision over this. It's probably really helpful to have that feedback.
And that's what we want. We relish that feedback and those questions kind of holding us accountable, because we know that there's so much for us still to do, and actually involving the community and having that feedback is so important. So again, just kind of summarizing that, again, this kind of RÆBURN Connects, it's all about having the conversation, kind of leaving our ego to the side and actually having kind of challenging questions and difficult conversations, because we need to really to make improvements. We've got to feel uncomfortable to kind of address those difficulties. No, amazing. This has been really, really insightful, and I love all the comments coming in.
Yes, so many. I would also so encourage everybody to go back and listen to the other RÆBURN Connects episodes if you haven't. I have, and I've learned so much from each of them. Really interesting perspectives on different areas of sustainability and retail. So yeah, if you're interested in sort of exploring that, if you're from the Stories Behind Things community especially, hop onto their Instagram and explore some of the other episodes.
Thanks, Gemma. And likewise, RÆBURN community, go check out Stories Behind Things.
Thank you.
So brilliant. Yeah, I mean, maybe we just summarize at this point now, Gemma, because it's been amazing. It's been 40 minutes. I've had so much fun. And actually, I think what I can take away from this conversation tonight is there's a lot of people here, obviously all you guys watching, that are feeling really optimistic about the change that we can make and the importance of us as individuals. I think there's been some real positives and hopefully lasting changes from the pandemic that the fashion industry can learn from, that brands can learn from. And there is power in people. And really what we need now is kind of brands to step up to that agenda, for that third part of the triangle to come in with government intervention and policies to guide the last few and onto that guiding path. So do you think this is actually a turning point, Gemma? Do you think this will be a moment in time?
Yeah, absolutely. I think customers are feeling more empowered / angry / demanding than ever. And I think there is real power in that. And I am so excited for the future of fashion. And I think this is a turning point. Unfortunately, from these negative moments through 2020, people are really demanding better. And I think there is hope.
Definitely. Well, this has been really enjoyable, really optimistic, and I love that. I'm an optimist at heart. So Gemma, thank you so much, and thank you for all the comments coming in. Let's just see if there's any more questions before we finish off. There was one: in my opinion, true sustainability can be achieved only when we buy less, which works against any business model to sustain ourselves monetarily. What do you think about that? I think that's a really good question. Gemma, why don't you kick us off? Do you have any?
I mean, I absolutely agree. I think buying less, having less is the way forward. And lockdown for many has been the solution to that. Not being able to have those usual habits has been really powerful. So I absolutely agree. And I think that's a really important point.
I think I've pinned it now, which might be more helpful.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. And also we preach the fact that, buy less, but buy well, make that last. Here at RÆBURN, we offer free lifetime repairs. If you, we know that things wear and tear, obviously that's the importance of the quality of the item. Invest your money in the right pieces and really treasure those pieces. And again, the brands that you champion, Gemma, on Stories Behind Things, are hopefully brands that people can look to and admire and support, and they deserve that support. So yeah, brilliant. Thanks for that question. Buy less, buy better, repair your stuff. Exactly. I think we as makers need to teach people the essence of fabrication, to show how to care and repair. I completely agree. Again, the value of material and the respect. I mean, I'm not a maker. I'm obviously on the digital team, but you know, just this idea, learning how to make things and seeing things being made here in the studio, you know, you do gain a lot of respect for that and meet people behind your clothes.
Yeah, especially when you understand how long it takes to make, you know, a t-shirt or a jacket.
Oh, yeah.
And also understanding how many hands that jacket passes through until it's actually in the store, I think allows us to understand that it is a long process, and that process should be respected, and sort of to cut that throwaway culture sort of out of the consumption loops. Definitely.
Brilliant. Well, I think we don't have any more kind of key questions coming in, but this has been so brilliant, Gemma.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be involved in this series, so really.
My debut. Amazing. And thank you everybody who's joined and commented. Let's keep that conversation going. And yeah, happy Earth Day.
Happy Earth Day, everybody.
Change.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gemma.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.